In a manufacturing process, it is required that the mean equal 10. The LCL is computed to be 5 and the UCL is computed to be 15. Which of the following X-bar charts illustrates a process that is in control? Well, let's look at the definition before we decide that. A process is statistically stable or within statistical control if it has only natural variation with no patterns, cycles, or unusual points. An unusual point would be a point below the LCL or above the UCL. Okay, let's look at graph A. And if you notice in all the graphs, I've highlighted the 5 and the 15, the LCLs and UCLs, so it's a little bit easier to pick out. Natural variation. Does it have only natural variation? I would say not by looking at that at first glance. There definitely are no patterns. Or cycles, and there are not unusual points. But as I said before, natural variation, no. This graph appears to have an upward trend and a downward trend. We start high, we go low, we go up again, and we start creeping up for another upward trend, and then we start to creep downward. So I would say graph A is not in the running for the correct answer. Graph B, it has natural variation. Those points are all over the place. They don't appear to be exceptionally low or exceptionally high or anything of that nature. There's no patterns or cycles, and there's no unusual points. So right now graph B looks pretty good. Let's check the other graphs. Graph C, which is in the lower left-hand corner, at first glance you can automatically see there's a pattern there. There is an automatic cyclical pattern. Low, then up, then down, then up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and that pattern just continues through the whole graph. So graph C is not in statistical control. Let's look at graph D. Remember, natural variation? Sure. There are no patterns. There are no cycles. Are there unusual points? Well, there's nothing below our LCL, but there are points above the UCL. Our UCL is 15 and we have a point right here. Looks like that might be 0.5, so that is above the UCL, so that graph won't work. And then our last choice is E. More than one of these are in control. Well, after reviewing all these, we said there's only one graph that is within statistical control, and that is graph B. So graph B is the correct answer. I'm going to write B up here. The reason it was not graph A, this one had upward and downward trends. Oops. Graph A had upward and downward trends. Graph C we said was cyclical. It has a cyclical pattern. And we said graph D had unusual point. Unusually high point. So we concluded graph D was our correct answer.